All right, settle in. Grab your favorite late night beverage, because we're about to have a come to Jesus moment about your money, and trust me, it's going to sting a little. But in that good truth, telling kind of way, many of you, my awesome tribe, you've been doing the work, right? Saving, investing, watching those numbers in your accounts creep up, and a big part of you feels like legitimately good about that. You're thinking, yeah, I'm crushing it. I'm building wealth. I'm on my way. But then there's this other feeling, isn't there? This little whisper, this persistent itch that just won't go away. It's that quiet voice asking, why don't I feel freer, better? Why does it still feel like there's a giant anvil of pressure sitting on my chest? And that, my friends, is the million-dollar question, or rather, the your net worth is lying to you question. Not because the math is fundamentally flawed, it's not, but because you're asking it to answer the wrong question entirely. See, that traditional net worth number. It's a good little soldier. It tells you if you're solvent, meaning do you have more than you owe. But here's the kicker. It was never ever designed to tell you if you're free. And let me tell you, solvency and freedom are two entirely different beasts, like comparing a dusty old accounting ledger to a private jet. They both involve numbers, but one gets you to Fiji, and the other just tells you if you can afford the bus fare. Look, I've been around the block a few times. Figuratively speaking, I'm only 25, but I've seen enough financial shenanigans to last a lifetime. I've seen people with colossal net worths who are utterly miserable, trapped by golden handcuffs. And I've seen people with far less who are living lives of absolute bliss. And it ain't about the size of your portfolio. It's about the quality of your choices and how you structure that dough. So let's peel back the layers and figure out how to truly use your net worth as a weapon for freedom. Not just a fancy number on a spreadsheet. Outright. Let's do this. So, here's the cold hard truth that most of the fancy financial gurus with their perfectly coiffed hair and bespoke suits don't want to say out loud. Most people, bless their hearts, are measuring their wealth with the wrong ruler. They're using a carpenter's tape measure to weigh a diamond. It just doesn't work. Let me break it down for you. The traditional net worth formula, it's super simple. Assets minus liabilities equals net worth. You own a house, say, for $500,000, you owe $400,000 on the mortgage. Boom. That's $100,000 in net worth. Then you pile on your car, your savings account, your dusty old 401k, your furniture, your suspiciously expensive clothes, whatever other stuff you have. Then you subtract out everything you owe, those credit card bills that multiply like rabbits, student loans that feel like they'll outlive you, all of it. And that, my friends, is the number. Now, don't get me wrong, that formula isn't inherently incorrect. The math holds up. It's just laughably incomplete for what we're trying to achieve here. That formula, it was cooked up by accountants, probably wearing green visors and smoking cigars. It answers a solvency question, and I say that with all due respect, even though I tend to poke fun at the old guard. It tells you if you have more than you owe, and sure, that's a foundational piece. It might keep you out of financial ruin maybe, but it absolutely does not tell you whether you are actually free. It tells you that you're not drowning. And let me tell you, there's a world of difference between not drowning and actually swimming with purpose towards a destination you chose. Here's where it gets juicy. When I talk about wealth, I make a distinction that most folks have never heard. There's a chasm, a Grand Canyon-sized difference, between being rich and being wealthy. See, rich is about how you experience and feel about life, the genuine connections you forge, the unforgettable experiences you collect. It's not about the dollar amount. Someone living simply, joyfully, completely aligned with their values, they can be living a rich life, while someone pulling in $500,000 a year, but utterly miserable and trapped is definitely not. Wealthy, on the other hand, that's about having money that can pay for your life, sustain your lifestyle without you having to constantly hustle and grind. It's about having a machine that works for you, not the other way around. And that's just a number. It tells you whether you got that number right. It's not about living a rich life, and it's certainly not your net worth. It's something else entirely. When we talk about net worth and people ask, what's the number that allows me to live the rich life? I tell them, it's what I call investable net worth. And let me be clear, these are not the same number. And for 99.9% of people, they're not even in the same zip code. Outright. Here's what I mean. Most people, they add up absolutely everything they own. Like I said, the house, the cars, that gaudy jewelry from your Aunt Mildred, your collection of limited edition action figures, maybe a boat if you're feeling fancy. I don't know. And when that grand total adds up to, say, $1 million, they puff out their chests. They feel like they've arrived. They're a success story. But I've sat across from countless people in my practice. They walk in, all confident, flashing their $1 million or even multi-million dollar net worth numbers. They've done the math themselves, they're beaming. And then we dig into it together, and we start separating what they own into two very distinct buckets. One bucket is for assets that can actually generate income to pay for your lifestyle, to fuel your freedom. And the other bucket, well, that's for everything else. The stuff that looks pretty but doesn't pull its weight financially. And when we're done, they're staring at two wildly different numbers. Because, let's be honest, the house you live in, your primary residence, that cozy little nest, it is not a cash-flowing asset. Now, I get it. You need a place to live. I'm not saying you should live in a tent. It is an asset. Absolutely. But it is not an asset that's part of the money machine that allows you to be free. It's where you sleep at night. It's a lifestyle asset, a use asset. It provides comfort, shelter, memories, all wonderful things. I'm not discounting its value there. I'm just saying it doesn't belong in the calculation of whether it can financially support you. And the same goes for your car, your fancy clothes, your shoes, your collectibles. Those might bring you joy, and they're totally fine to have. But they are not going to be part of what I call the money machine. See, your car, it's not your retirement plan. Unless you're planning to rent it out on Turo, like some kind of automotive Airbnb host, in which case, fine, we can talk. You're thinking outside the box, but here's the data point that absolutely stops people cold every single time I share it. When you look at truly wealthy households, the ones who actually have genuine financial freedom, their primary residence typically makes up about 20% or less of their total net worth. Let that sink in, 20% or less. But for most other households, it's closer to 50%, or sometimes even more than that. And so, you have to really think about what that means for you. If you have $1 million in total net worth, but half of it is tied up in the house you're living in, then your actual investable net worth is only $500,000. Not $1 million, just $500,000. And if you still have a mortgage on that house, that debt still needs to be serviced. And that eats even further into what's actually available to generate income. The composition of your net worth, not just the total sum, is what truly determines whether you can retire, whether you are truly free, whether you can choose to stop working whenever you want, whether you actually have a money machine, or just a nice-looking balance sheet that gives you a false sense of security. See, your traditional net worth didn't grow because you built a better wealth system. It probably grew because your house value went up. And those two things, they are not the same. The underlying structure, the way your net worth is built, that didn't change, which means the freedom they thought they were building towards didn't change either. It was a mirage, a beautiful, deceptive mirage. So now you know the problem the traditional net worth formula is asking, and therefore answering. The wrong question. Coming up, though, I'm going to introduce you to the number that actually tells you where you stand on the path to financial freedom. And I promise you, once you see it, you'll never look at your finances the same way again. Because the number that actually matters, the number I've been hinting at, is your investable net worth. Here's the simple, elegant definition. It is the portion of your net worth that can generate the income to pay for your lifestyle without you having to sell your assets at the wrong time. That's it. That's the whole ballgame. What do you own that can actually work for you? 24/7, 365 days a year. Remember the subtitle of my book? It's How to Get Your Money to Work Harder Than You Did. That's the key. That's the secret sauce. And the calculation looks like this. You take your total assets, but instead of counting absolutely everything under the sun, you only count the ones that genuinely belong in your money machine. We're talking stocks, bonds, index funds, ETFs, dividend, producing investments, income, generating real estate, retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, business equity interests that are consistently generating cash flow. Then, you subtract out your total liabilities, everything you owe to anyone. That's student loans, mortgages, credit card balances, all of it. And when you subtract that out, what you're left with, that's your investable net worth. That is the true size of your money machine. Right now, everything else, the house you live in, the cars, the collectibles, the designer shoes, those are lifestyle assets. They have value absolutely, but they just aren't part of the machine that spins out income for you. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but Mel, my house is an asset. It appreciates. I'm building equity in it, and you absolutely are. I'm not taking that away from you. I'm not saying your house is worthless. But here's the crucial question. Can you live off that equity without selling the house or taking on more debt? Because if the answer is no, and for 99% of people it is, then it's not feeding your financial freedom. It's housing your family, which is totally wonderful, a beautiful thing. It's just a different category. See, your house loves you. It shelters you. It warms you. It gives your dog a backyard to run around in. It's just not, however, going to make your car payment when you retire. Let me make this brutally real with a scenario. Imagine someone walks into my office with what looks like a rock-solid financial picture, a total net worth of $1 million, and they feel pretty good about it. We dig in, their residence is worth $600,000, and they still owe $350,000 on the mortgage. The rest of their net worth is split between a 401k, a small brokerage account, and some savings. This was a real client. By traditional measures, they had $1 million. But when we calculate the investable net worth, we strip out the house. Instantly, that $600,000 vanishes from the money machine column. Now we're working with about $400,000 in investable assets, minus the remaining liabilities. So, their actual money machine, the thing that can generate income, is maybe $300,000 to $350,000. That's the real number. And what could be generated from that if we use a 4% withdrawal rate, which is the rough guideline for a sustainable retirement income, is about $12,000 to $14,000 a year. Now, they thought they had a $1 million machine capable of spitting out serious cash. But what they actually have is a machine that generates maybe $1,100 a month. That, my friends, is not retirement. That's a supplement, a nice little bonus, but not freedom. And this isn't a criticism of that person. It's just a stark reflection of what the traditional conversation around net worth has been for decades and what has been completely missing from it. So, here's why this matters so urgently. Remember 2008? We watched people play out this exact scenario on a grand, terrifying scale. People had real estate, they had what looked like positive net worth, but it was all tied up in a liquid debt-laden real estate with absolutely no liquidity underneath it, and when the values dropped and the jobs disappeared and they couldn't pay the mortgages and tenants couldn't pay the rents, they couldn't sell the properties because they were worth less than what they owed on them. What had looked like wealth on paper, a big impressive number, turned into a financial crisis in real life. See, a positive net worth on paper, but they were effectively bankrupt in real life because the composition was wrong and the liquidity wasn't there. The people who made it through 2008 with their wealth intact, they weren't necessarily wealthier on paper before the crash. They had the right structure, they had liquidity, their investable net worth was real. That's the game we're playing, not just growing a number, but building a machine that can actually sustain your life. See, here's the thing, and something I think we all need to be acutely aware of, and something I want you to do, I want you to actually calculate your investable net worth. And one of the first steps to doing that is to figure out what your freedom number is. If you're not sure what that is, it's simply the amount of investable assets you need to be financially free to support your lifestyle without working. And I've got a super slick, totally free freedom number calculator on my website. Malabraham.com Fay number. It makes it ridiculously easy for you. It walks you through exactly what to count and what to put in there. You can play around with the information, see different scenarios, at least it'll give you a trajectory, a real target, and you'll know what you're truly dealing with. And now, you're dealing with a real number, your investable net worth. Now, here's the kicker. There are 3 critical things that determine if your investable net worth actually works for you. Because think about this. You've done the math, you've stripped out the lifestyle assets, and now you know your real investable net worth. So, what next? 2 people can have the exact same investable net worth and have completely different outcomes. One person can be living comfortably, stress-free, off their portfolio. The other one could be white, knuckling it through every single market correction, terrified they'll lose everything. See, the difference isn't just the size of the number, because this is the other huge thing that gets missed. We think it's just the absolute size of the number that matters. But it's not. It's also how that number is built. And there are 3 things I want you to think about as you're building your net worth, your investable net worth. The first thing, my friends, is liquidity. Not all investable assets are created equal when it comes to accessibility. And when life happens, and trust me, life always happens, you need to be able to get to your money without blowing up your entire strategy. This is one of the foundational reasons my wealth priority letter is built the way it is. It's a bulletproof framework for what to do with every single dollar in a specific order to optimize it and give you an unshakable financial foundation. It's not just about the returns, it's about having liquidity. You need a peace of mind fund, a financial moat, something to carry you through the inevitable downturns, so you're not forced to liquidate your precious assets at a loss, or at a massive discount, if you will. And so, this is the thing that we absolutely need to have. We want money set aside in a high-yield savings account. Now, you hear a lot of people say 3 to 6 months in an emergency fund. And that's great. It's a start. But I push my clients and my students to go for 9 to 18 months. Let's call it 12 months in general, in a high-yield savings account. Fully liquid, fully insured, not tied up in some risky investment, just sitting there, readily available. The job of this money is not to make you rich. The job of this money is to keep you sane, and ultimately to keep you rich by protecting your machine. It's to protect what you're building, and that's one of the first most crucial things we need to do. Ensure we have that piece of it in our investable net worth, because it acts as a shield for the rest of it, because when the market inevitably drops 30%, the person who has that piece of mind fund just watches it happen, maybe even smiles a little. The person who doesn't, however, has to sell into the drop, locking in losses, and turning a temporary decline into a permanent financial wound. Congratulations, you just sabotaged yourself. Okay, the reason this matters so much for your investable net worth is that without liquidity, the entire foundation is completely shaky. You need to be able to let your investments do their work, compound, grow, without being forced to interrupt them. without being forced to sell them. That painful lesson was driven home with a vengeance in 2008 when values plummeted. Liquidity is what transforms your investable net worth from just a number on paper into a machine that actually functions and supports you. Now, the second thing is this: your risk tolerance relative to your timeline. And here's where I won't give you a one-size-fits-all generic answer, because there isn't one. And anyone who says, here's your magic formula, without knowing your age, your life stage, your specific circumstances, and crucially, your psychology, they're selling you something, probably snake oil. What I can tell you is this, and it's a timeless principle: the amount of risk you take on has to match the amount of time you have before you need that money, combined with the amount of psychological volatility you can actually sustain without losing your mind. I call it your risk triad, your unique risk profile. Because here's what happens: people build these elaborate portfolios, and then, during a market correction, they can't emotionally hold themselves together. The market drops 25%. They panic, they sell everything. I've done it, it cost me millions. Literally. And they lock in those losses, and then they watch the market recover, often quickly, and it recovers without them. This happened tragically during the COVID crash.